All right. I believe we're live, and we are. Okay. Hello, everyone who is already here. I see we already have over 700 people who have joined. Thank you so much for being here to learn about your pension fund. It is an honor and a pleasure for us to be here today from the UN Pension Fund, the UNJSPF, to provide you with information that is essential for those of you who are participants in the UN Pension Fund. Today's session is in English. We will provide moderation of questions and answers. We have already started with those who came in. And we look forward to spending the next 2.5 hours together to take you on a bit of a pension journey. This town hall is the first of its kind in the sense that we have given many pension town halls, but usually they are at the invitation of an organization, of an entity, and we are invited to present, and we come in and we present to a small group of our participants. But today is the first event that the pension fund is organizing, where we are hosting this event to make it as accessible to as many of our participants as possible. And we have many participants. So with this, I would like to just maybe introduce that we are here with a team of pension experts from the UN Pension Fund. We are here from our teams representing client services in the fund, in our offices in Geneva, in New York, in Bangkok and Nairobi. We hope that through this session, you will find that some of the aspects of pension that may be not entirely clear to you or that you never actually thought about become clear, and that you feel confident that you understand what your future pension rights will be, but also what you may be or need to be aware of while you're a participant, a member of the pension fund, paying contributions and earning towards or building your future pension rights. Maybe just to give some housekeeping rules to explain how this is going to work today. So we have a couple of presenters. I am here. I'm Christine Kartner from the UN Pension Fund. I'm the Chief of Client Services in the New York team, together with my colleague Denise Gaston-Gordella, who is the Chief of Client Services in Geneva. So we will present, and we are very much supported. Hi, Denise. Great to see you. Thank you. So Denise is going to take over in a little moment. We're going to throw each other the pension ball. So we're here supported very much by our colleagues from the client services teams, as I said, in the different offices where we work, who are all pension experts, very experienced, very knowledgeable, who are moderating the Q&A chat. The Q&A chat I see is already active. So if you look on the top, you have this icon that has a little question mark in it and a Q&A. That is where you can ask questions. So as we go along through the presentation, you may have questions, of course. It could be that maybe we are not going to be detailed enough about certain aspects you are interested in, or maybe we don't cover everything that you wanted to hear about. So in that case, or if something wasn't clear enough, in that case, you can ask, of course, related questions and put them here in the Q&A chat. One of our team colleagues will take over and will look at your question and respond to it. But please understand that this is not a place where you can ask questions about your personal case. That will require that someone looks at your case profile in detail, analyzes various aspects of your pension profile, and then sends you a detailed reply. Those questions cannot be addressed today. So for that, please use the official channels that are advertised on our website under the Contact Us menu item. And then, of course, they will be reviewed by the appropriate expert and you will receive a reply. So today, questions should be of general nature relating to what we present, or of a nature that is useful to everyone, because all the questions will be published and visible to everyone. It's also important that you please not include in your question any personal details like your unique ID number for the pension fund or your index number for the UN or organization you work for. You don't want to share that with everyone, obviously, because it's confidential. So again, for the Q&A, it's to clarify, to ask additional information about topics relating to pension. And my colleagues will do their very best to answer as we go along. Depending on the volume of questions, you may have to wait a little bit to get a reply, but we are working on replying to every question that is coming in. And sometimes they may tell you to be a little patient, because a topic you may ask about will be covered later in the presentation. In that case, they will just let you know. They will also give you links to our website, where we have many, many topic pages that include actually very helpful, I think, information about topics, so that you know where to go and find information that you need. In terms of timing, this is a 2.5-hour session. I know we're already 7 minutes in. We will have a break. It will take about an hour from when I start the actual session. And you'll have a 10-minute break, and then Denise takes over and takes you through the next part of the session. We'll have a couple of quizzes. The quizzes are not to test whether you are a pension expert, just to kind of make it a little bit more interactive and playful, and maybe remind you of some important aspects of what we talked about. So to start with the first quiz, it's not really a quiz, but here is a question. So we will have quizzes via Slido. So my colleague will publish in the Q&A a Slido link. I don't know whether she already did that, but it should come up if it's not there yet. You should, if you want to participate in the quiz, and we'd appreciate it, click on that Slido link and you will see the questions that are coming up. For example, here is the icebreaker, as we call it. Do you know how many people the UN Pension Fund currently services? How many participants, retirees, and beneficiaries are members of the UN Pension Fund? Do you have any idea? Is it 50,000 and more? Is it close to 145,000? Or is it over 200,000? If you are in the Slido and you give us an answer, great. So we'll have a few of those quizzes as we go along, and it's, as I said, it will not be complicated questions, and it isn't about being right or wrong, but more about reinforcing some of the things we talked about. Finally, this video and the presentation that we are showing you will be posted on our website. It may take a couple of days to show up, but you will be able to access video and the presentation on our website, so you can go back to it if you wish, if there are certain parts you want to re-listen to, or you want to simply go to the slides, which maybe some of you may prefer. And finally, we will have more of these sessions. We intend to have at least one every month. They will be for different topics, and they will be in English and French in alternation. As I said, today is our English session. Next month, the same session focused on essentials for participants will be given in French. So if anyone today is here who would prefer a French session, next month you can attend the same content session in French. And then in March, we will have a session about retirement and separation. So today our session will not go into the details of what are the documents required for separation, what does the separation process look like, and so on. That is a session we will hold in March 2024 in English, and then in April 2024 in French. Today, however, we will cover aspects relating to participation, and we will go over all the benefits the fund provides. Finally, we will give you an overview of some useful pension tools that may help you navigate pension questions in your own time without a pension expert on your side. Hopefully that will be useful information too. So with that, I will give you the answer to the icebreaker. How many people are currently serviced by the UN Pension Fund? It's close to 230,000. We are at around 227,000 or something like that. So we have over 180,000 participants. That's staff like you and I and all of us here who are currently members of the fund and who are staff members who are eligible to be a member of the pension fund, and probably all of us paying contributions to the pension fund month after month to build our future pension entitlements from the pension fund. And we have around 70,000 plus, I think I said the wrong number earlier, I'm not sure. We have around 130,000 participants, I apologize, and around 5,000 retirees and beneficiaries. So all in all, we have over 200,000 members. That's the pension fund services. And we are around 300 people working in the pension fund, both in the management of investments and in the pension administration. That's where all the people today that are here to present and to moderate your Q&A, we are in the pension administration of the fund. And before I start, a big thank you to our colleagues in OICT who are managing this event from a technical aspect. Big thanks, they have made this possible together with us. All right. So I will now start sharing my screen. I may, if the connection is somewhat wobbly, I may switch off my camera so that we can focus on content and not on you seeing me if that's impeding the connectivity. All right, so sorry, I'm just getting my mouse ready. And I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you now see what I see, which is the slide UNJSPF Pension Townhall, Pension Essentials for Participants. So what we will talk about today will cover the following items. We are going to have an overview of the UN Pension Fund and the pension scheme that we are all part of. Then we are going to look at some key pension definitions and factors that we use to calculate future entitlements. We say you're going to learn to speak pension because in the fund, we have some terms that are very technical and that sounds maybe a little bit, I don't know, I want to say scary if you're not used to handling pension questions on a daily basis. So we want you to understand what those terms refer to so that when you navigate, for example, our website or member self-service for the pension fund, you may come across those terms and it might be helpful to understand what does it mean, pensionable remuneration, or what does contributory service actually mean, or normal retirement age. So we will go over those items so that you understand them better, hopefully. Then we will look at some elements of participation that might be very important for many that have options to avail of certain options, let's say, at certain times during their participation in the fund. That could be when you separate, so you understand how a break in service may impact your participation in the fund, or if you have a period of part-time work, or if you take a period of special leave without pay. So it's good to understand that these decisions in your career may have an impact on your status with the UN Pension Fund. And our aim is to let you know when is it that you may want to contact the fund or check in with your HR about the impact some of these career decisions have on your pension fund status, just so you are aware, and maybe there are some options and decisions that you have to make with regard to your pension participation. Then we will go over all the main pension benefits that the fund offers. Denise is going to take you on that journey. She's going to give you an overview. Again, this is not a pre-retirement session, so we are not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of every benefit, but she will explain all these benefits to you so that you can think about, if you're maybe 7 years away from early retirement age, whether this is something you want to consider and what aspects might be important to know to make that decision. And then Denise will also talk about the other kinds of benefits the fund provides, which includes some information about disability and, very important, about survivors' benefits. Again, so that you can plan for the future and you're aware of the potential entitlements that may exist for survivors. And finally, as I said, it will be a kind of demo session of some aspects of how to navigate the website, but more importantly, of your UN Pension Fund member self-service, your personal portal where you can access important pension information. All right. So with that overview of the UN Pension Fund and the UN Pension Scheme. By the way, I know that some people wonder what UNJSPF actually stands for. It's a little maybe confusing because UNFCU doesn't look all that different. So, but we are very different. We have nothing to do with each other, really. So the UNJSPF stands for United Nations Joint Staff Pension Fund. And it's a joint staff pension fund because we are servicing 24, as of this year, 24 organizations of the UN system and their staff, and our regulations and rules of the pension fund apply equally to every single staff in all of those organizations who are members of the UN Pension Fund. And you all, I presume, are representatives of all of those organizations. So welcome to the fund. If you have been a member for a long time, fantastic. I think we are all part of a very strong pension fund that offers very generous benefits. And again, I hope with this information today, you will feel that you actually understand better what it is, this pension fund that you are a member of and paying contributions toward every month. So to start off, I will share a video with you. The fund has spent a lot of time, and especially our communications team, which is also represented here today, in creating material to make pension easier to understand. Among that, there is this video that I will share to explain the UN Pension Fund. We have over 20 of these videos about various subjects, and this is one of them. So I'm going to pull over a page from our website, actually, so that I can show you where these videos are and then play the one that I want to play about the fund. So here, if you go under, I go to the homepage of the website, which is here, UNJSPF.org, and I go to resources. Here you see we have something called all videos, and that is where I'm going right now. And here you can see that we have a number of videos, and all videos explaining important topics relating to pension exist in English, in French, and in Spanish. So you can see there are many topics covered. Today we will share a couple, maybe 3, but there are many more, and I believe it's maybe a good way to reinforce information about some of these topics, if that is something you are interested in. But here I will start with welcome to the fund. It's an introduction to your UN Pension Fund. So I hope the audio works well. I will start the video now.
The United Nations Joint Staff Pension Fund, or UNJSPF, was established in 1949 by the General Assembly of the United Nations to provide retirement, death, disability, and related benefits to staff of the United Nations and other member organizations of the fund. As at 1 January 2022, The fund had 25 member organizations and served more than 220,000 participants and beneficiaries worldwide. Most of the fund's staff are based in New York, USA, and in Geneva, Switzerland. It also has representative offices in Nairobi, Kenya, and Bangkok, Thailand. The UN Pension Fund is a defined benefit plan. This means pensions are calculated according to a formula and are payable for life and adjusted for cost of living increases, according to the regulations and rules of the fund. Deficits in funding are the responsibility of the member organizations in the fund. Participants therefore do not bear the investment and longevity risks associated with defined contribution plans. Another feature of the plan is that benefits are initially calculated in US dollars, the unit of account of the fund, but that benefit can be paid in a different currency in most countries of the world. The fund is now mature, and benefit payments can often exceed its contribution income annually. It uses a small part of its investment portfolio income to meet the difference to pay for pensions when required. The fund is in a well-funded actuarial position, as demonstrated by the results of the actuarial valuations completed over the last few years. Under the overall supervision of the UN General Assembly, the fund is administered by the tripartite UN Joint Staff Pension Board, the Chief Executive of Pension Administration, and a Staff Pension Committee for each member organization. The fund's pension administration is focused on modernizing and improving delivery of its services to its participants, beneficiaries, and the member organizations. Leveraging technology and digitalization are the cornerstones of the pension administration strategy. Most documents and forms can now be uploaded online in the fund's member self-service portal, and retirees and beneficiaries can complete their annual proof of life certificate of entitlement via a mobile application, while interfaces continue to further automate data transfer between member organizations and the fund. On the investment side, the Office of Investment Management manages a growing investment portfolio that amounted to $90 billion at the end of 2021. The fund's investments are governed by the criteria of safety, profitability, liquidity, and convertibility. In addition, the fund continues to strengthen its commitment to sustainable investing. The fund's goal is for its participants to retire with peace of mind after having served in the international civil service. This is the fund's contribution in support of the global missions of its member organizations. For more information, visit UNJSPF.org.
All right. So that was a very high-level overview of our pension fund. I hope it was useful. Let me go out of the videos and close this one. So now that covers some information that is very important, among which that we are part of a so-called defined benefit pension scheme. That means that, as mentioned, our future entitlements from the UN Pension Fund are based on this formula that was mentioned, taking into account the length of our contributory service and, for retirement benefits, the level of income that we had at the end of our career based on our grade and step during the last years of our service. So once that benefit is calculated, it is payable for life for retirement benefits. And that's the beauty of being part of a defined benefit scheme, where future entitlements are based on this formula that is defined and regulated by the regulations and rules of the UN Pension Fund. And we are not subject to how the assets of the fund are evolving and doing. And whenever there are modulations or fluctuations, it would impact our payouts. That is not the case. Our benefits are also not based on our own contributions only. Retirement benefits, again, are calculated based on this formula. And we will look at that in more detail later in the presentation, but it's something that it's important to be aware of because it is part of the strengths of the pension fund that we are part of, and especially the benefit of being part of this pension scheme is that for those of us who will eventually elect a retirement benefit of some sort, we will be entitled to monthly payments for life. And hopefully all of us live a long, long life and draw pension payments from the pension fund for a very, very long time. Okay, so now a bit more detail about how the fund works before I go back to the slides. So one more video explaining how the fund works, and then we will look at more static information on PowerPoint slides.
When you have a staff contract with a UN pension fund member organization for 6 months or more, you become a participant in the fund, unless your contract excludes participation in the fund. As a participant, a percentage of your salary, based on your pensionable remuneration, is paid into the fund each month. The member organization that employs you pays twice the amount that you pay. Today, more than 140,000 individuals and 25 member organizations make monthly payments into the fund. Fund capital is invested, and the income from these investments ensures that the fund is able to meet its obligation to pay benefits into the future. The UN Pension Fund is known as a defined benefit plan. It pools all of the contributions received. Your benefit at retirement is based on how long you contributed to the fund and the level, grade, and step at which you contributed, and it's guaranteed for life. It is not a defined contribution plan, which is another category of pension plan, where there is a separate account for each individual and benefits are based on the market value of the invested contributions. The fund pays out monthly benefits to more than 80,000 retirees and other beneficiaries in more than 190 countries and territories. The regulations and rules of the fund are strictly implemented to safeguard the fund's financial security and pensions. For more information, visit UNJSPF.org.
Okay, so with that, thank you for your attention during these two videos. I'm now going to the presentation. Close the page. All right, and again, the presentation will be shared together with this video of our presentation on our website in a couple of days approximately. And of course, in the presentation, you have links to all the videos we are showing and many other resources. But you could also, of course, just go directly to the website to access these resources. I've also seen questions about where would you find information about future sessions, French sessions or sessions about pre-retirement and so on. That too will be published on our website. And we will do mailings like we did for this session, where we will directly mail information to all those for whom we have an email address on file in the fund and communicate the next dates for the next sessions. So it will be published and you will get that information with more lead time than you did for this session. All right, so let's move on in the presentation. Some of what is going to be in the next slides is a repeat of what you saw in the videos, but I wanted to put it also in the slides just to highlight some of these aspects. Now, you may have understood that one very important aspect of why the pension fund exists is to provide for income replacement in retirement. So for those of us who contribute to the fund for more than 5 years, we will have earned the right to a form of retirement benefit at the time of separation, if we wish. For someone who has contributed to the fund less than 5 years when they separate, they will not have the option to elect a form of lifelong retirement benefit, but in that case, the person would be entitled to a one-time payment called a withdrawal settlement. Denise later will talk about the different kinds of benefits and explain how a withdrawal settlement is constituted versus how retirement benefits are constituted. But the importance here is to understand that that is part of the purpose and existence or reason of existence for the UN Pension Fund. And that in order to be entitled to a retirement benefit, which is a lifelong benefit entitlement to monthly payments and possibly even a form of lump sum, you have to have vested pension rights. And vested pension rights means that you have contributed to the UN Pension Fund for at least 5 years. Once you have contributed to the fund 5 years or more, then, as I said, you will have vested pension rights, meaning you will have the option to elect a form of retirement benefit, if you wish, when you separate from service. Another very important reason for the fund, or not reason, but responsibility of the UN Pension Fund is the coverage of the risk of disability and death for its members. So anyone who is a member in the UN Pension Fund and who was medically cleared by their employing organization at the time of joining that organization, and at the time, therefore, of starting participation in the fund, they are covered for the risk of disability and death. What does that mean? It means if we were to become disabled while a participant in the fund, and it doesn't matter whether the disability is due to causes of, work-incurred accident or incidents, or whether the disability is incurred due to illness or an accident that we had when we were having vacation. I apologize for the noise. Really sorry for the noise. All right. So if someone incurs a reason that impacts their health and therefore requires the fund to, or rather, justifies the fund awarding a disability benefit, in that case, the person will receive regular monthly payments following the award of disability for as long as the disability lasts. I have an alert saying that my microphone is muted. Can you hear me? Can someone tell me if you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. That's very strange. All right, but good. If you hear me, that's great. So again, disability coverage means that if for reasons of health, we can not work, no longer work and exercise our duties, then we can apply for a disability benefit from the fund. And if it is awarded, it will be paid as monthly payments for as long as the disability lasts. Denise will talk a bit more about disability later. And then coverage for death means if I died in service, that doesn't mean it has to be due to service incurred death, meaning a bombing while I'm working or something, but just the fact that if I deceased while I'm a member of the UN Pension Fund, while I'm a participant in the fund, in that case, if I have entitled survivors like a spouse and or children under the age of 21 and or several spouses, in some countries that might be possible, in that case, my survivors would be receiving regular monthly payments as survivors. For a spouse, that's a surviving spouse's benefit. For children, it would be surviving child's benefit, etc. So in other words, the fund covers this risk of disability and death in service or after retirement, of course, in which case, if death occurs, entitled survivors would receive regular monthly payments from the UN Pension Fund. And for a spouse, those payments would be for life. For the coverage of disability and death, there is no vesting requirement, meaning you are covered for this risk from the day you join the UN Pension Fund as a participant. You do not have to contribute for at least a certain number of years. You are covered from day one of being a participant, provided you were medically cleared by your organization when you joined the organization as a staff member. So this is really the essence of what we do in the fund. It's a bit like a social security system in many countries. We take care of you when you can no longer earn an income from a UN job, or because of disability or death in service, we take care of survivors or of the disabled former staff. That is the role of the fund. Again, more details to follow when Denise will talk about benefits. We already covered the number of participants and beneficiaries that are members in the fund, how many member organizations. Last year we were 25 member organizations. As of this year, we are only 24 because one organization, the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, no longer is actively in existence. So with that, just to give you an idea of what the fund spends versus what the fund's income is in terms of contributions, we participants in 2021 paid over $3.1 billion of contributions to the fund, plus that includes both the employee, us participant share, and the share that is paid on behalf of the participants by the employing organizations. On the other side, how many benefits did the fund pay, or rather, what was the value of the benefits the fund paid? Over $3.1 billion in 2021. So you see here that the income, the contribution income that the fund receives from the participants, month after month, adding up to a certain amount per year, nearly covers the amount that the fund spends every year in payouts to cover the many payments that the fund makes in the form of retirement benefits, disability and survivors benefits, and of course, one-time withdrawal settlements. That is good to know and understand because it means that our fund is very healthy and that the assets of the fund really can continue to grow and build that buffer and financial security that we need to have a very well-funded UN pension fund that is able to pay benefits in the long term. There's also mention of the number of queries we handled, just to say that from our large group of participants and beneficiaries, we receive a lot of questions, and that's part of course, the essence of what we do in client services. And we answer those questions, and we received over 122,000 in 2022. All right, so I will go on to the next, or quickly through the next slides, because all this was covered already in the video, the explanation of us being part of a defined benefit pension plan, and the fact that that means that our assets are pooled, our assets plus contributions paid to the fund, and that periodic benefits, meaning benefits payable on a monthly basis, like retirement benefits or survivors benefits, are determined based on this established formula and established factors that, based on the length of our contributory service and our final average income level at the time of separation, as well as our age at the time of separation, will determine what our regular monthly payments are. So that's kind of a security. Also, again, retirement benefits guaranteed for life, meaning the amount to which we are entitled will continue to be paid for as long as we are alive, and oftentimes followed after by survivors benefits. But that once we are entitled to a form of regular monthly retirement benefit, that continues to be paid until our death. Finally, a note to say that we are part of a so-called US dollar-based pension scheme, which means that all contributions that are paid by our participants are reported to the fund in US dollar. So even if you individually are paying or getting your salary and therefore pay contributions in that sense in your local salary, your organization will convert and make sure that your contributions are deducted from your salary in their US dollar equivalent value and therefore reported to the fund at the value that we need to receive your contributions. And all future entitlements will be calculated in their US dollar value and then paid to you in the currency that you request. So we will establish your entitlement in its US dollar value, but then of course, if you say, well, I would like to be paid in euro or in Swiss franc or in CFA or in whatever currency, pesos, then the fund will make sure that you receive your entitlement amount in the currency into your bank account of choice that you have requested. I'm not going to go into more details on payments here. That will be part of when we talk in the pre-retirement town hall in March. All right, a visual illustration of our pension fund system, let's say. I'm not going to hold there because we already covered that. Just maybe a quick look at the funding status for the UN Pension Fund. As of the 5th of January, when that's the latest time that we have an update on the status of the assets of the fund, which of course is published on our website. I can show you later where you can find this information. So as of that date, the value of assets of the fund was over 87 billion US dollar. And again, back to what I showed you a little bit earlier, the contribution income we received in 2022 was actually 3.12 billion per year, and the benefit payments we made during that same year was 3.1 billion during the same year. And as I mentioned, you can see that the contributions that we received nearly covered the payouts. So the little missing piece that was taken from the assets of the fund to make sure that we pay, of course, all benefits. The remainder of the assets at the time is continue to be invested to continue to grow and build our financial security or maintain it into the future. Overall, the fund is healthy and fully funded. So that's very important because just, I would say, like everyone here, I too hope that one day when I retire, I will be benefiting from regular monthly payments for life and potentially survivors' benefits for my survivors, if that were the case. So I think we are all very interested and keen on our pension fund being healthy and fully funded and functioning into the long, long future. If you're more interested in investment details, then please visit our website where you can find useful information. I'll show that to you also later. So before we go on, a quick quiz just to give you a little break, and my colleague Regina will, I think, again post the Slido link so that you can access the Slido and answer the questions that we are asking. So question number 1. Is the UN Pension Fund a defined benefit pension plan, or is it a defined contribution pension plan? Who has the answer? I think I have hammered it down, but please, there is only benefit of seeing the answers, because if we need to clarify it, I'm happy to do that. So I see answers coming in. More and more people answering that we are part of a defined benefit pension plan, where based on the formula that is a static formula that we're using to calculate benefits, we can estimate today what our future payouts will be. So what is defined is our future entitlement based on that formula. We are not a defined contribution pension plan. So a defined contribution pension plan says, okay, we know how much you have to contribute, but we can't say today how much you will get in the future. That will depend on how the markets do and so on. So that's not what we are. We are, Regina, we can see everything you do. I don't know whether that's the purpose. We are a defined benefit pension plan. So well done. Thank you for participating in that question. Let's move on to the next question. Question is, besides retirement benefits, what coverage do we in the UN Pension Fund provide? Answer, do we provide disability and death-related benefits to those that are entitled? Or does the pension fund cover after-service health insurance? So let's see. Again, is the role of the UN Pension Fund to provide retirement benefits, but also disability and death-related coverage? Or is the role of the UN Pension Fund to administer health insurance? I think most of you have it right. So the UN Pension Fund does not administer health insurance. That is a separate entity. The UN Insurance Office is in charge of health insurance administration, including after-service health insurance, and the pension fund does not administer it. Do we have an arrangement where for those who are receiving regular monthly retirement payments, we can take out the amount of premium they have to pay to health insurance? Yes, we can indeed do that. But the pension fund does not administer health insurance. We have no knowledge of health insurance, and we would not be able to look into your health insurance eligibility, coverage, and so on. So the answer is the pension fund covers the disability and death-related benefits for those entitled. Thank you for participating in this quiz, everyone, and it hopefully helps clarify a bit further what our role is. Okay, so moving on with the presentation. I think I have to go back to sharing. I should now show key pension definitions and factors. I hope you can see that page. If not, please let me know. Otherwise, I assume it's all good. So, what are these key pension definitions and factors? That's where we're going to take you on a bit of a ride, because now we're going to look at these terms that are important terms and factors in pension, when we speak pension, when we administer pension. So first of all, a very important factor to determine, first of all, when you become a member of the UN Pension Fund, but also to determine your normal and early retirement ages, is your date of entry into the fund. Your date of entry into the pension fund means the date at which you became entitled to be a participant in the UN Pension Fund. To become a member in the fund, you have to fulfill the requirement of being a staff member on a contract of 6 months or longer, or if you were a staff on a shorter term contract on the outset, then your shorter term contracts have to be extended to reach 6 months at some point, and the breaks between contracts cannot be more than 30 days. Once you hit the 6 months mark and you're further extended, you would then join the pension fund. I'll talk about that a bit more later, but what is important to understand here is that not everyone has a date of entry into the UN Pension Fund that aligns with their start work date. So you may have started to work in your organization at a date that is earlier than the date at which you qualify to become a participant in the fund. That is not unusual. So don't be kind of concerned if there's a difference in your date of entry into the pension fund and the date when you started work. That is probably because your contract at the start work date was not yet long enough to qualify you immediately into the fund, or maybe it wasn't a staff contract. Maybe you were a consultant, or a UNV, which are contracts that don't qualify for pension participation. But once you do qualify for fund participation, that date of entry will determine what are the regulations applicable at that time, and therefore, what is your normal retirement age for pension purposes? What is your early retirement age for pension purposes? I joined the fund in 2007. At that time, normal retirement age was 62 and early retirement age 55. Because my date of entry into the fund is in 2007, my early retirement and normal retirement ages are 55 and 62. But my colleague who recently joined in 2024 will have a normal retirement age of 65 and an early retirement age of 58, because he joined when the regulations stipulate that those are normal and early retirement ages for anyone entering at this time. So if your colleague has a different date of entry into the fund, and at that time, different normal and early retirement ages apply, they would have a different normal and early retirement age potentially than you. That is not unusual either. We'll talk a bit more about normal and early retirement age in a moment. Moving on to contributory service. Your contributory service is one of the key factors to calculate future retirement benefits. Why? Because the longer your contributory service, the higher is a rate that we call your rate of accumulation of future entitlements, because your rate of accumulation is based on the length of your contributory service. Contributory service is service when you are a staff member, entitled to be a member in the UN Pension Fund, and where you are actively paying contributions to the pension fund. Sometimes, if you have a period of special leave without pay, for example, there may be periods of non-contributory service inside your period of pension fund participation. Usually, I would say most people probably have contributory service that starts and ends without interruption. But some colleagues have periods of contributory service some colleagues have periods of participation that include small interruptions during periods of leave without pay or very short breaks in service periods. And therefore, their contributory service may be interrupted from time to time within their period of being a participant in the fund. So when we calculate your rate of accumulation, we only look at the periods when you were an actively contributing member in the fund, and that will then determine the rate of accumulation that you will have acquired at the time of separation. The longer your contributory service, the higher that rate of accumulation. So again, when we calculate periodic benefits, like retirement benefits or disability benefits, we look at these aspects. If you're interested in more details on the rate of accumulation, there is some information here on this slide. Basically, you acquire a certain percentage every month that will slightly increase your rate of accumulation over time. These percentage rates of the rate of accumulation change after 5 years and again after 10 years. And you see that the longer you contribute to the fund, the higher the rate of accumulation that you accrue month after month. So, is there a maximum rate of accumulation? Yes. The maximum rate is 70% of your final average income level. So when we say what is the maximum rate of accumulation, that is the maximum percentage rate you can acquire based on the length of your contributory service, meaning if you exceed a certain number of years of contributory service, you will be locked into this or have hit the maximum rate of 70%. In order to reach the maximum rate of 70%, you would have to contribute to the pension fund for over 38 years. So someone who gets very close to 39 years of contributory service, you may get close to or hit this maximum accumulation rate of 70%. If you're interested in more information, then of course, please ask, but I will move on. Another very important definition or term we use in pension is the so-called pensionable remuneration. What is pensionable remuneration? It is a scale. It's like a salary scale used to calculate your monthly pension contributions to the fund and used to determine your final average remuneration. Let's focus on this scale being used to calculate your monthly contributions. So it looks like a salary scale. It's included on your salary slip for information, and the scale or the amount that you see is an annual amount. The pensionable remuneration scale is based on your grade and step during a given month and will determine how much pension contributions you have to pay during that very month. And it also determines, of course, what is the amount of contributions your organization has to pay on your behalf to the fund. For professional staff, this scale is applicable exactly identically for every grade and step across all duty stations around the world. Meaning, whether you are a P37 in New York, in Geneva, in Bangkok, in Thailand, in the DRC, in I don't know, in the any country in the world, basically, it doesn't matter where you're working. For your pensionable remuneration, your grade and step is going to determine the scale that we are going to use, and it will be exactly the same regardless of where you are working in the world. Whether you work in a danger duty station or in a secure duty station like New York, the same pensionable remuneration will apply for the same grade and step. For local and general service staff, your scale is equal to your gross pensionable salary. So basically, more or less to your gross salary, including language allowance or any pensionable allowance. For details, please refer to the regulations. So your pensionable remuneration is a scale that is used by your organization to determine what your pension contribution amount is during a given month. These scales are determined by the International Civil Service Commission, not by the UN Pension Fund. The pensionable remuneration scale is also used to determine your final average remuneration. What is that? When we calculate retirement benefits, we look at what is your final average income level, your final average remuneration level, FAR, and how do we determine that? We look at the highest 36 months of your pensionable remuneration rates during the last 60 months or 5 years of your contributory service prior to separating. In general, for most people, this highest 36 months of PR rates is during the last 36 months of their career, but not always. It could very well be that there are fluctuations and that have to do with currency exchange rates and so on, in which case maybe your highest 36 months might not be the last 36 months of your service, but somewhere else during those last 5 years of service. So again, to calculate your final average remuneration, we look at the last 60 months of your contributory service, and we will take an average the best 36 months during those 60 months at the end of your career. Okay. And this last reminder that in order to calculate retirement benefits, the fund will take the factors of your rate of accumulation, which is this percentage rate based on your length of contributory service, and multiply it by your final average remuneration. We already talked about vesting. So vesting, again, if you hear this term, vesting of pension rights means that you have acquired the right to a form of lifelong retirement benefit by having contributed to the UN Pension Fund for a minimum of 5 years of contributory service. Again, in order to be entitled to a lifelong retirement benefit, you have to have vested pension rights. However, you do not need to be vested. In other words, you don't have to have at least 5 years of contributory service to be covered for the risk of disability and death. That coverage exists from the first day of you joining the UN Pension Fund, provided you were medically cleared when you joined your organization. I already mentioned normal retirement age. So you have heard that term, I'm sure, but just to clarify, normal retirement age, again, is a concept used for pension purposes. It is different from your mandatory age of separation, which is based on the staff regulations of your organization, not the UN pension regulations. Now let's focus on normal retirement age. So normal retirement age is the age at which, when you separate, you would be eligible to receive a full retirement benefit without reduction due to being younger than that age. So your normal retirement age is set in the regulations and rules of the fund, and at different times the regulations and rules had a different normal retirement and early retirement ages applied. If you joined the UN Pension Fund prior to 1st of January 1990, then your normal retirement age would be 60 and early retirement age 55. If, however, you joined the UN Pension Fund as a participant between 1 January 1990 and 31 December 2013, that is my case, then your normal retirement age is 62 and your early retirement age is 55. And finally, if you joined the UN Pension Fund as a participant since 1st of January 2014, then your normal retirement age is 65 and your early retirement age is 58. So from time to time, the fund changes these retirement ages. Usually that is a change to the plan design due to ensuring that the fund is continuously, that the pension scheme is adapted to the reality of our membership. And for example, if we see that life expectancy of the membership is constantly growing or increasing, and therefore we will have to pay benefits for a longer time, that is, of course, an impact on the financial situation of the fund, then the actuaries of the fund may decide that it is healthy to up the retirement ages, as they did in 1990 and 2014. So again, it depends on your date of entry into the fund, the date when you qualified for pension participation, what your normal and early retirement ages are, and they could be different than that of your colleague. And your normal retirement age could be different than your mandatory age of separation. So this is just a reminder slide of the different ages. I'm going to move on. Looking at mandatory age of separation. So what then is mandatory age of separation? Mandatory age of separation, or MAS, that is the age where your employing organization says that you should separate from service. This is basically the maximum age till which most of us can work based on the staff regulations of our employing organization. For, I think, all of us, our mandatory age of separation is 65 at this point. So I think it was in 2018 that most organizations changed the mandatory age of separation from previously 62 to now 65. So meaning that generally, I guess, if our contract permits, we can work till age 65. I want to make it very clear that this change in mandatory age of separation did not impact your normal retirement age. If your normal retirement age, based on the date that you became a member of the UN Pension Fund, if your normal retirement age is 62 for pension purposes, it remains 62 for pension purposes if you just continue being a member in the fund. Even if your mandatory age of separation under the staff regulations is now 65. What does that mean practically? It means that you could, if you wish, resign at 62 and be entitled to a retirement benefit to which no reduction factor for early retirement would apply because you would have reached your normal retirement age for pension purposes. Do you have to separate at your NRA, at your normal retirement age for pension purposes? No. The fund has no say in when you have to separate. So, in other words, if you wish to continue and work till 65, it just means that from the moment that you reach 62, you, at any point thereafter, if you separate, would be entitled to a benefit without reduction factor for early retirement. So in my case, my normal retirement age is 62. My mandatory age of separation is 65. If I wanted to separate at 62, I can do that. I would have to resign. And in that case, I would be entitled to a normal retirement benefit, meaning a benefit without reduction for early retirement, because I have reached my NRA. Or if I say I want to separate at age 63 and a half, again, I can do that. I am entitled to a benefit without reduction for early retirement. And if I say I want to continue working to 65, then that's great too. I, for as long as I'm working, will continue paying contributions to the fund, will continue increasing my contributory service and therefore my rate of accumulation. And whenever it is that I separate, at that time, the fund will check, has she reached her normal retirement age? If yes, at least I have reached at least my normal retirement age, I'm entitled to a benefit without reduction for early retirement. Of course, if I separate before reaching 62, then I may be entitled to an early retirement benefit with a reduction factor. That's it for the ages. Now, just to highlight that the fund has terms that include settlements and benefits. So settlement payments are different and are calculated differently than periodic pension payments. Denise will talk about this in more detail when she goes over all the different benefit kinds and how they work. But just to let you know that a pension settlement, a withdrawal settlement or residual settlement, those payments are one-time payments that once the fund has paid them out to you, there is no further liability with the fund. In other words, once a withdrawal settlement has been paid, there is no entitlement to any other payment from the fund for that person. Versus periodic benefits. Periodic benefits, meaning benefits payable on a monthly basis, so periodically, to the person entitled. That includes retirement benefits, survivor's benefits, disability benefits. So those benefits are payable on a monthly basis and either for life or for a duration in time. And they are calculated differently based on that formula that we mentioned already. And they are adjusted for cost of living over time. So just to kind of start thinking about these different concepts, settlement payments are one-time payments, periodic benefits are payments that continue in time and are adjusted for cost of living over time. A quick quiz, back to Regina, just to go over these items. I don't know, Regina, do we have a quiz or should I go on? I can also just continue. Okay, a quick question. Let's see. All right, I see that this question comes a bit earlier than we cover this actually. So maybe let's just see if you know this, and then we ask the same question later when we actually get to the part. So the question is, both you and your employing organization pay contributions to the fund. What is the contribution share that you, the staff member, has to pay every month? Is it 1/3 of all contribution payments made? Or do you have to pay 2/3? Or do you pay a percentage, 3.25 compounded? I see that the vast majority of you is answering 1/3, and that is correct. We, the staff members and participants in the fund, pay 1/3 of the total pension contributions to the fund. With that, Regina, we will stop the quiz and I will continue with the presentation. Thank you. Can you see? I think I'm still sharing. Just wondering, can someone confirm, can you see part 3, participation in the fund? All you need to know? Can you see my slide?
Share again, Christine.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. All right, so now hopefully you see the slide. We are going into some participation information before we have a break. So what is key information that you need to know? First of all, and I already mentioned that, who is actually entitled to be a member in the UN Pension Fund? Who can become a participant? I already mentioned that in order to become a participant, you have to fulfill 2 requirements. One is that you must be a staff member. So if you're a consultant or a UNV, unfortunately, you are not qualified and would never be allowed to participate in the fund in that capacity. And the second requirement is that you have to have a contract for a minimum duration of 6 months. If that is the case, you are a member in the fund from the first day of the 6-month staff contract. However, of course, many of us started out on contracts that were a staff member contract, but less than 6 months. So in that case, those of us where that is the case would not have been members in the pension fund immediately, but only once we completed 6 months of service on a series of contracts that were staff contracts, but of course shorter duration than 6 months. And those contracts were interrupted by no more than 30 days. Once we completed 6 months of service on this series of appointments and are further extended for whatever duration on a staff contract, we would have joined the pension fund. So I already said that earlier, don't be alarmed if you see that your date of entry into the fund is a bit later than your start date as a staff member in your organization. That has probably to do with the kind of contract you had at the start of your career. Now, once you are qualified to be a participant in the UN Pension Fund, you will have to pay contributions. And this is basically covering the question we just had in the Slido. What is the contribution share that we, the staff, the participants have to pay? We pay 1/3 of the total share that has to be paid to the fund. And our employing organization will pay 2/3. So in total, the fund will receive 23.7% of our pensionable remuneration during that given month as pension contributions. Out of the 23.7%, we, the staff, contribute 7.9%, and our employing organization pays 15.8%. So we are part of a fairly generous pension scheme where we, as the employees, as the staff, pay far less than our employer pays, which is, of course, good for us. This contribution rate has not changed since 1990, so for a very long time, which is a sign of security and stability of the UN Pension Fund. Now, if you are interested in understanding better how your contributions are calculated, it takes us back to this pensionable remuneration. So if you look at your salary slip, on the top somewhere, you probably see something called pensionable remuneration. The amount you see there is probably a rather high amount, and that again is your pensionable remuneration. It's an annual scale for pension purposes, most close to your gross salary level based on your grade and step during that given month. That amount would be divided by 12, so it's a monthly value, and then you would have to pay 7.9% of that amount as your pension contributions, and your organization would pay twice as much as the organizational share. So if you're interested to know more about that, you should look at your salary slip. You could make this calculation and hopefully see that it is correctly applied. A little reminder that pensionable remuneration is not equal to the amount that you would receive as a retirement benefit or a withdrawal settlement. It has nothing to do with the amount that you will receive as a payout. Pensionable remuneration, again, is a scale used to calculate your contributions to the fund. And later, when you separate, if you are entitled to a form of retirement benefit, that is used to calculate your final average remuneration level so that we can then multiply that, the average amount, by your rate of accumulation to obtain your pension entitlement. Now, some of the factors I've talked about, including pensionable remuneration, but also contributory service lengths, normal retirement age, and so on. You may ask, how do I know what my status is? How do I know what I actually currently, what is my current status in the UN pension fund? You can check that by looking at something called your annual pension statement. That statement is available inside your member self-service for pension, which hopefully you have already registered for. If not, you should definitely do that. And under the Documents tab, you can access this document and check what your status was at the end of 2022. The fund publishes this annual statement every year, sometime in later May, and it will cover your status with the fund from the date that you joined till the end of the most recent prior year. So soon, the pension fund, our finance team will publish the next annual statement, which will be the annual statement for 2023, where you will see your status in the fund from beginning of becoming a participant till year end 2023. If you go into your MSS, into your member self-service right now, and you check your annual statement, the most recent one available is probably the one for 2022. And you would see your status since you started being a member in the fund till year end 2022. So 2023 would not yet be included. What can you see on this statement? This is just one statement of someone. So you can find your personal data under A on top. It includes your name, which I have, of course, whited out here, your date of birth, your sex, your marital status, and it would also include your category, and at the very end of that line, NRA, your normal retirement age for pension purposes. So for my statement here, it would say Christine Kartner, vested yes, date of birth in March 71, I'm female, I'm married, and it would say normal retirement age 62 and category professional. For B, contributory service, it would show my beginning date of starting contributory service in the fund, and it would show my date of entry into participation. So the date of entry is this date at which you qualified for pension fund participation, which here is 13 July 2003. And you can see that there is another date just before to the left, which says beginning date. So some people have a beginning date of contributory service that is different than their date of entry into participation. And that is because they might have availed of an option called validation, or an option called restoration, or an option called transfer in of pension rights. We will talk about that in just a moment. So if you have two different dates here, that is probably because you availed of one of these options. Most people would see the same date as the beginning date of counting their contributory service, would be the same as their date at which they qualify to become a member in the fund, which again determines their normal and early retirement ages. At the bottom of this table, you see, of this box, you see total at 31 December. So if you look at the statement for 2022, you would see the total that person has at the 31 December 22 since they joined the fund. In this case here, it's someone who has 15 years and 4 months of contributory service by that year end. And to the right of that, you see LWOP break in participation. That's periods when this person was a participant in the fund, but not contributing. So this person had a break in service or a period of special leave without pay of 1 month and 23 days. So this is all shown here so that you know what we have on record for you in our records. I just wanted to also say, make sure that under personal data, your date of birth and your name are correct, that your name is correctly spelled, and that your date of birth is correct. If you see any discrepancy, please go to your HR and ask them to address that discrepancy with them so that they could report whatever correction needed to be reported to the fund, and the fund could then consider making those changes. And then the last two boxes are contributions C and annual pensionable remuneration. So C, that box provides the amount that you contributed to the fund until that year end that we are looking at, and the interest you earned till then. So in this case, your contributions total is 76, in this case, not your, but the person's contribution total was over $76,000 US, and the interest they earned for that same period is over $17,000. So this amount shows their own contribution and the interest they earned. This statement and box do not show the organizational contributions. They are not included on the statement. We only show the data pertaining to you specifically. And then the last box, annual pensionable remuneration. This is where we show you the history of the pensionable remuneration rates reported for your case, based on which we received your pension contributions, and eventually what we will use to calculate your final average remuneration. The box may not have enough fields to show all the history of all your pensionable remuneration since you joined. It will only show the most recent ones. And as you can see, the most recent one is always in this box 20 on the bottom right side. And sometimes pensionable remuneration rates will be unchanged month after month for many months. And in other cases, they may change from 1 month to the next. So every time there's a change to pensionable remuneration, that would be reflected here. So this pension statement is a very important document to check from time to time to make sure that you don't find any, or to check whether you find any discrepancy or anything that you find is not correct. In which case, if it pertains to personal data, please contact your organization, your HR, to fix that. And if it pertains to pension points, then you may want to contact the fund directly via the established channels to get clarification. All right, so now that we have looked at the statement, just some principles that you should be aware of and keep in mind. Some we already covered, others may not have been covered yet, so I will focus on the ones I haven't yet covered. First, participation in the fund is mandatory. You cannot opt out. From the moment you are in, you are covered for the risk of disability and death. Contributions are automatically deducted from your salary, and that is done by your employing organization, which then reports those contributions plus their own to the fund. You cannot make voluntary contributions for a period of break in service. If you have a break in service, that is it. You can have a break in service inside a period of participation. That is not unusual. It would just simply be counted as non-contributory service. Vesting we already covered, so I'm moving on to 5. You earn interest on your contributions. As you just saw in the annual statement I shared, you earn interest and it accrues at the rate of 3.25% year after year, compounded. So you're earning an exponentially increasing interest on your contributions. If you leave with a withdrawal settlement or you ask for a lump sum cash payout as part of your retirement benefit, that interest will be paid out to you together with your contributions. 6, we cannot extend personal loans. We are not a bank. We are not UNFCU. We cannot do that. We cannot touch your account, let's say, until you actually separate it from service and we have received the required separation documents. We also cannot make payments to a third party. We can't pay on your behalf to pay off a loan, or we cannot pay to a family member. We pay to you. So once you get payment from us, it has to be into an account in your name. And finally, we cannot release confidential information relating to your case to a third party. That is a colleague, a friend, a family member. If you wanted someone who is not you to get access to your pension information, you would have to submit a written signed authorization to the fund to allow that. These are just some highlight points because these are questions that we get quite frequently and we wanted to clarify this. Now, once you are a participant, I already mentioned you will be covered for the risk of disability and death. I'm not going to go into more detail here because Denise will cover this. So you will be covered for this risk from the date that you are becoming a member in the UN Pension Fund. If you become disabled and a disability benefit is awarded, you would receive income replacement in the form of a disability benefit. And if you died in service and you were married at the time of death in service and had children, the fund would take over to pay income replacement to your surviving spouse and children if they are entitled. Finally, something to consider is that some of you may have an option to maximize your contributory service in the fund. What does that mean? It means that you may have an option to increase your contributory service beyond the service you have accrued or you're accruing from the date that you joined the fund, the date of entry. How does that work? You may have options to validate or restore or transfer in pension rights, or you may have the option to pay contributions to the fund while on leave without pay. Why would anyone do that? Because it would impact your contributory service and you would accrue additional contributory service during those or related to these options. What is validation? Validation is the option for someone who had a date of entry into the fund that is later than the date at which they became a staff member of their employing organization. If someone had a contract that did not immediately qualify them for pension fund participation, once they do qualify for pension fund participation and become a participant, they have the option to apply to make the prior period of non-contributory service part of their contributory service. They can validate those months when they were already a staff member but not yet entitled to be a participant in the fund, to validate that period and make it part of their contributory service. A strict timeline of 12 months applies from the date that you become a pension fund participant. More information at the link that is provided on our website. What is restoration? Restoration is the option to reimburse or to pay an amount of money to the fund, and by doing so, reactivating a period of prior contributory service. How does this work? If someone was a participant in the fund, separated and received a retirement payment, a withdrawal settlement payment from the fund, or elected a deferred retirement benefit, then that person, maybe several years later, comes back and again joins the UN system as a staff member and again qualifies for pension fund participation. In that case, this person can contact the fund and has 12 months to apply from the date that they rejoined the fund to ask to restore the withdrawal settlement that they had received, meaning to reimburse the money that they had received as a withdrawal settlement plus compound interest. And by doing so, reactivating the period of contributory service for which they had received the withdrawal settlement. In that case, that contributory service would now again be part of their total contributory service. Or someone who had elected a deferred retirement benefit that was not yet due in payment, and that election was done anytime as of 1st of April 2007. If that was the case and the person then later rejoins the fund as a participant, in that case, they could inquire within 12 months from rejoining to see whether it is beneficial to restore the deferred retirement benefit. That is a whole other process. It is often not beneficial, but I will not go into more details here. I would just say in both cases, if you received a withdrawal settlement or you elected a deferred retirement benefit and then came back to active fund participation, if you meet the conditions and you contact the fund within 12 months from rejoining, we can determine whether you are eligible to restore, and it is beneficial for you to do so, and you can decide whether you wanted to restore a prior period of contributory service. Third option, transfer in of pension rights. Transfer in means if you were a member of an outside international organization that is not part of the UN pension fund and pension scheme, and you had acquired pension rights and then left that organization and joined a pension fund member organization and became a member of the fund, you would have the option, excuse me, to apply to transfer in your pension rights acquired in that outside pension scheme. Very strict conditions apply, and you would have to apply as soon as you join the pension fund so that we can determine whether you might be eligible and you can determine whether it is beneficial to do that. If you were to transfer in pension rights acquired in another pension scheme of another international organization with which the UN pension fund has a transfer agreement in place, then that means that that amount that you transfer in would buy you a period of contributory service in the fund that we would add to your new contributory service that you start by being a member of the UN pension fund. All three options have very strict timelines applied. All three options require that you contact us in writing to request to avail of these options. And they are about adding contributory service to the contributory service that you are earning because you are a member in the fund. Ultimately, it means that you are increasing your contributory service so that you benefit from a higher rate of accumulation and ultimately probably from a higher retirement benefit. And then finally, one more option there where you have the choice to pay contributories, to purchase contributory service. That option is under special leave without pay. If you avail of a period of special leave without pay, which is approved by your organization, you can choose whether you want to pay contributions to the fund during such period or not. If you do pay contributions to the fund, it means that that period of special leave without pay is considered contributory service. If you wanted to do that, you have to consult with your employing organization, not the fund, to make that arrangement, to make payment and ensure that payments are made concurrently with your leave without pay from the first day of the leave without pay. We don't accept retroactive special leave without pay payments. If you don't want to make payments during leave without pay, which most people don't, then that's fine. In that case, you can have a maximum period of leave without pay of 36 months, interrupted or consecutive, inside your participation in the fund. So it is possible to have a fund participation where you have periods of non-contributory service due to being on leave without pay, during which you choose not to make contributions to the pension fund. For much more details about leave without pay and how to set that up and with whom, and where to find the information you need to know how much you would have to pay, etc., please visit the website at the link provided here. Consult with your organization and, of course, the pension fund if you have questions beyond what we provide on our website. Just a reminder, if you want to make contributions, that is an arrangement that you have to make with your employing organization and payroll office, not with the pension fund. And finally, what is the impact of part-time? It is if you have periods of part-time inside your participation period in the fund, that's fine. For as long as your part-time is at least 50%, you remain an active participant in the fund and you will continue to pay contributions and increase your rate of accumulation. However, the accumulation of rate, the increase of your rate of accumulation is going to be proportionate to your part-time work percentage. And for the purpose of vesting pension rights, part-time is counted like full-time, meaning if you had 3 years of full-time and 3 years of part-time work, it would be counted as a total of 6 years of being a contributing member in the fund, and you would have vested your pension rights when you hit 5 years of contributory service. Last point, break in service. Many people have breaks in service. It's not unusual at all. There are various conditions relating to break in service that will determine whether that break in service would interrupt your participation in the fund, stop your participation in the fund, end it, or whether you can have a break in service and then rejoin and continue with the same participation. I'm not going to go into all the details here. There's a whole page on break in service and information on this slide that you can refer to in the future. I will just say that if you have a break in service of less or not more than 30 days, and then rejoin as a staff and again be a member in the fund, your participation would continue as soon as you rejoin, as you again join the UN Pension Fund member organization, and you would continue your participation. So short breaks in service have hardly any impact on your participation in the fund. And finally, as I said earlier, a break in service can never be made pensionable, meaning you can never pay contributions to make that period contributory service. It's not possible. All right, so for all of this, more information is on our website. We also have e-learning modules that cover everything that I covered. So it may be of interest to you to take this e-learning module at the link that, excuse me, is provided here. Before I move on, we will have a break. I'm going to skip the quiz. I will go right to the break and say that it is now already 10:40. I apologize to Denise. So being 10:40, the break will end at 10:50, at which time you should please return and we will continue with benefits of all kinds that Denise will cover. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry we went a bit over the time. All right, so we are back. I will stop sharing and hand over to Denise for the next part of the presentation. Denise, if you want to take over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for coming back from the break. So in this next two sections, I will be presenting information about the pension benefits that the UNJSPF provides. And I realize we have about 40 minutes left, so I will move quite quickly and hope that it will still be clear, although I'm going to probably move through some of the slides rather quickly. So again, this section is about the UNJSPF pension benefits, and we do have some links and resources here in this presentation where you can refer to our website and the information there and read through more closely and more at your leisure. We have also the e-learning modules on benefits in this link here at the bottom of the slide. So we have two different types of benefits, as was previously discussed. We have the one-time payments and we have monthly payments. So if you recall, there were the withdrawal settlement for those who had less than 5 years of contributory service when they separated. It's also an option if you have more than 5 years, but it is the only option if you have less than 5 years of service when you separate. So with the withdrawal settlement, this is a one-time payment of your own contributions to the fund with the 3.25% compound interest that it has accrued during your participation. And as I said, this is just a one-time payment, and then there's no further benefit paid. If you have more than 5 years of contributory service and you take this one-time payment, you will receive your contributions and interest increased by 10% for each year beyond the first 5 years. And this is up to a maximum 100% increase. So that would equal 15 years of contributory service. But if you have more than that and you choose the withdrawal settlement, your amount of contributions and interest would be increased by 100%, and that would be the maximum increase. So in contrast with this one-time payment, the withdrawal settlement, the pension fund also offers periodic or monthly retirement benefits. And to be eligible for that type of benefit when you separate from service, you will have to have been vested or have at least 5 years of contributory service at the time of separation. And the key factors involved in the calculation of this type of benefit are your length of contributory service. So the longer you serve, the higher your benefit will be. And there was a slide which referred to the rate of accumulation, and this is one of the parts of the calculation that is connected to the length of contributory service. If you recall, there was a slide with some different percentages for each period of years of service, and I'll show you shortly how that works in the calculation of a retirement benefit. Then you also had your date of entry. This will determine your normal retirement age. So when you separate at age 60, is that your normal retirement age? And are you eligible already for a full retirement benefit, for example? If not, then you might be eligible only for an early retirement benefit, or if you're not yet even at early retirement age when you separate, you may be eligible only for a monthly benefit that will start later when you have reached at least your early retirement benefit. And then we had this other factor that was mentioned about the final average remuneration. That's the highest 36 months of your last 5 years of pensionable remuneration, and then the average of those highest 36 months is used in the calculation of this monthly retirement benefit. Your options for retirement benefit are determined at the time of separation. So at that point, we see how many years have you contributed and what is your age at separation. So what type of benefit can you choose? It will depend on these factors of your age at separation. And as we see, depending on when you started contributing to the fund, your retirement age will vary. So it's the
Hi,
normal
Denise.
retirement. Yes.
Sorry, could you please put on full screen? We're still on, we're not on full screen.
Okay.
Thank you. At the bottom, the slideshow,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel. So the age, or sorry, the date at which you started contributing will determine what your retirement age is. So you have a retirement age of either 60, 62, or 65, depending on when you started contributing to the fund. And the early retirement age that is associated with those normal retirement ages are 55 or 58. Then we have a deferred retirement age, which is any age younger than the age at which you would be entitled to your normal retirement benefit. So you can choose the deferred retirement benefit at any age up until your normal retirement age. So I'm going to go through the different benefits in just a moment. In these slides, we have 3 scenarios. One is for the normal retirement age of 60, one is for the normal retirement age of 62, and the third scenario is for the normal retirement age of 65. And because I'm assuming that most of us are in scenario 2, that we have a normal retirement age of 62, I will go through that scenario only, but they all have the same principle. So if you separate younger than your early retirement age, which is 55, and you have at least 5 years of contributory service, when you separate, your options will be either a withdrawal settlement or the deferred retirement benefit. So the deferred retirement benefit is your only option to receive a monthly benefit for life, but you cannot start receiving it at the time of separation because you haven't yet reached the age that you are eligible to start receiving it. The earliest you can start receiving it is at age 55. So let's say you separate at age 50 and you have 15 years of service. You want a monthly benefit, you don't want to take a one-time payment, for example, then your option would be to choose the deferred retirement benefit. Your money will stay with the fund, it will not accrue interest, but at age 55, at the earliest, is when you could start receiving that monthly benefit. If you separate somewhere in between, so at least at age 55, that's your early retirement age, and up to a day before you reach your normal retirement age, then your options are the two benefits that I just mentioned. Or you have a third option now, which is an early retirement benefit. This is a benefit that you can start receiving straight away at separation, if you have reached at least age 55. I'm going to go through the different benefits in the coming slides. So if you separate at your normal retirement age or later, your only option is a normal retirement benefit. So we will see the different types of benefits and a bit of how they're calculated. This is the third scenario, which is related to the normal retirement age of 65. The principle is still the same as the scenario that I just went over. We have on our website comparative pension benefit charts. You may find this helpful to look at your benefit options depending on the age at which you separate and how many years of contributory service you have at the time you separate. The link is here in the presentation, and it looks like this, so you can look at the different benefits and the different descriptions of those, who's eligible, and some of the descriptions of those benefits there in the tables. We also have an educational video like the one that you saw earlier on in the presentation. They're relatively short. They're 5 to 10 minutes. Usually most of our videos are less than 5 minutes. And this one is about benefit options. I'm going to cover these benefit options here in the presentation, but I encourage you to review this video. So first, we'll look at the withdrawal settlement. This is the one-time payment, which if you have less than 5 years of contributory service, it would be your only option for payment. And it is an option all the way up until 1 day before you reach your normal retirement age. So it is, again, it is your own contributions, not the organization's share, but the ones that you paid out of your salary with the compound interest. And if you have more than 5 years of service when you have separated, there will be the 10% increase of that amount of contributions and interest. This is an example. Let's say your total contributions at the time of separation was $20,000 US, and the interest was $5,000. So together, the compound interest and contributions is $25,000. Because you have only 4 years of contributory service, there's no increase. So your withdrawal settlement is exactly your contributions and interest. This is a second example. Let's say your contributions are totaling $40,000. Your interest is $10,000, but you have 7.5 years of service. So you will have the bonus. You will have the 10% per year increase for 2.5 years. So that's a 25% increase. So $50,000 is your contributions and interest. The 25% increase for that 2.5 years beyond the first 5 years amounts to $12,500. So your withdrawal settlement total is $62,500, the contributions and interest plus the increase. Okay, here's a third example. If you have 15 years of service, this would be when you have reached the 100% increase because you have 10 years, 10% per year. So your contributions and interest in this example total $180,000. You get a 100% increase for the 10 years beyond the first 5 years. So your withdrawal settlement is double the amount of your contributions and interest. And then finally, just to show the example of someone who has even more contributory service, in this example, 20 years, the maximum increase is still 100%. So contributions and interest, $200,000, a 100% increase. And the withdrawal settlement comes to $400,000. This is basically the withdrawal settlement. So a one-time payment, there's no survivor's benefits associated with it. There's no child benefit associated with it. So this is, again, your option for that type of payout, which is your only option if you have less than 5 years of service at the time of separation. Now we'll look at the retirement benefits. These are the monthly benefits that are paid for life. The amount of your benefit is calculated in US dollars, and it is adjusted for cost of living over time. It's also got a survivor's benefit attached to it in the event of your death. So you can be receiving this monthly retirement benefit, and in the event of your death, if you have eligible dependents, they can be paid a survivor's benefit. So first I'll talk about the benefits, and then in the next section, I'll talk about survivor's benefits. First, we'll look at the normal retirement benefit. This is the benefit that you would be entitled to if you separate at your normal retirement age of 60, 62, or 65, whatever the case may be. This will be a one-time, sorry, not a one-time payment. This will be a monthly benefit for life. And there is an option to choose only monthly benefits or a one-time lump sum and the remainder of your benefit paid for life as a monthly benefit. Now that monthly amount will be lower if you choose to take a lump sum. The monthly benefit is adjusted for cost of living. In the normal retirement benefit, so let's say you separate at age 62, and if you have any children who are under age 21, you will receive an additional amount called a child's benefit on behalf of each child who's under the age of 21 up until they reach age 21. In the event of your death, your spouse, whom you were married to at the time of separation and remained married to until death, would be eligible for a surviving spouse's benefit. Again, I'll go over that in the next section, but this is a benefit that is paid for life to your surviving spouse. If you continue to work beyond your normal retirement age of, say, 62 or 65, whatever your normal retirement age is, your entitlement to a normal retirement benefit remains. You will just continue to be adding to your contributory service, and your benefit upon separation is a normal retirement benefit. So as long as you've reached your normal retirement age, even if you work beyond that age, you're still entitled to a normal retirement benefit. On this slide, we see an example on the right hand of your member self-service estimate. If you run an estimate with a separation date that is when you have reached your normal retirement age, then you will see the amounts that will be paid to you if you are at the time that you separated your normal retirement age. And then under that full pension amount is the amount your surviving spouse would receive. It's roughly half of what your benefit is. And then under section 2, you see reduced pension with lump sum. So you can choose to receive 1/3 of your benefits value as a one-time payment lump sum when you separate, and then you can see that the rest of the benefit that you're paid monthly for life is going to be lower because you chose to take a portion of it as a lump sum. Regardless of which option you choose, with or without lump sum, the surviving spouse's benefit will be half of the full pension that you were entitled to. So early retirement benefit. This is a benefit for life that is payable if you have reached at least your early retirement age at the time that you separate. And of course, assuming that you have at least 5 years of contributory service. With this option, you can also take a lump sum and the rest as a monthly benefit. There are a few differences, though, between the early retirement benefit and the normal retirement benefit. So let's say your early retirement age is 55 and you separate at age 55 and you want to take the early retirement benefit, then you will have the option to take a lump sum or not. And if you have any children, then when you reach your normal retirement age of 62, so that's say 7 years after you've been receiving your early retirement benefit. If your children or child is still under the age of 21 at that time, then you will receive the additional amount of a child's benefit on behalf of that child until the child reaches age 21. So you start receiving your benefit at separation, but you don't receive the child's benefit until you reach age 62, and only if the child's under age 21. And with the early retirement benefit, there's also a surviving spouse's benefit, similar to what I just described under the normal retirement benefit. The early retirement benefit is also adjusted for cost of living. So I'm just checking the time. I think I better move even more quickly. And so one thing to be aware of with early retirement benefit, you will have a reduction to your benefit. So you're taking it early from when you would be eligible for a normal retirement benefit. And the amount that it's going to be reduced is based on a couple of factors. It will be depending on how many years you start receiving your benefit before you've reached your normal retirement age. So the maximum would be 7 years because there's 7 years in between age 55 and 62, or between age 58 and 65. So there's 7 years difference between your early and normal retirement ages. Now, how many, what percent per year is the reduction that's applied will depend on how many years of contributory service you have. If you have less than 25 years of contributory service at the time of separation and you take an early retirement benefit, then your benefit will be reduced by 6% per year. So just consider that if you have less than 25 years, your benefit will be reduced 6% per year. So that's possibly a 6 times 7, a 42% reduction to what your benefit would be if you worked up until your normal retirement age. If you have more contributory service, you have a smaller reduction percentage per year. So that's where it is advantageous to have at least 25 years of service. And depending on what your normal retirement age is, you will have either a 3 or a 4% per year reduction. And if you have at least 30 years of contributory service, you have a 1% per year reduction, which means quite a beneficial situation to be in if you're taking early retirement. But these lower percentage rates are applicable to maximum 5 years. So the other remaining years, if you separate 7 years before your normal retirement age, those remaining years would have a 6% reduction. So this is all in the notes here on the slide. Just be aware that these reductions are applied if you take an early retirement benefit, and the longer your contributory service, the lower the reduction will be. This is an example of an estimate for someone who separates at early retirement age. So they can take an early retirement benefit, which means they'll start receiving their benefit straight away, and they have the lump sum option. They could also choose to just take a deferred retirement benefit, which means they won't receive any payment now, but they're deferring the benefit until a later date. Normally it's at your normal retirement age. If you start taking it before then, which you can start receiving a deferred retirement benefit as of your early retirement age. It will be reduced in the same way I just described. And then the third option for someone who separates at anywhere before their normal retirement age, but having reached at least early retirement age, they also have the withdrawal settlement option. Here's the third benefit so far. This is the deferred retirement benefit. This is also a monthly benefit for life. It's also adjusted for cost of living. And in the event of your death, if you have a surviving spouse, the spouse is eligible for a benefit for life. But there is no child's benefit attached to this benefit, and there's no lump sum option. So again, if you start taking this benefit before age of normal retirement age, there'll be a reduction, and there's no child's benefit associated with this. So you have this option, and if you have a at least 5 years of service, but you haven't even reached your early retirement age yet, this would be your only option for a monthly benefit in the future. And this example of the estimate is showing what you would see if you run an estimate and your separation date is when you have not yet reached early retirement age and you have at least 5 years of service. So you have the option of withdrawal settlement or a full deferred retirement benefit. The amounts shown are what you would get if you wait until your normal retirement age to receive it. And if you take it earlier than that, there'll be a reduction applied. And the surviving spouse's benefit is half of the amount of your benefit. This is another example of what you see if you have a separation date when you have reached at least early retirement age. And if you still don't know what you want to choose, you have up to 36 months to make a decision when you separate. So you can choose to defer your decision. Some people do this because they are hoping or expecting to be reemployed within the 36 months. So then they leave their pension there, and then they just continue with their pension contribution when they rejoin. So this is not a benefit, but this is a choice you have when you separate to say you want to leave your pension there for 36 months maximum, and then you will make a decision before the 36 months, or you may have re-entered the fund if you're reemployed with a member organization. So if you do that, you have possibly a break in service if you re-enter the fund. If you do choose to take a benefit payment and you come back, Christine had mentioned this option to restore your benefit, so you can pay back a withdrawal settlement if you come back into the fund, and therefore pay back all the contributory service that you were paid out. So I'm not sure. Not sure we're going to do a quiz now.
You
or
can
just
skip
at the
it.
end. We'll skip it. Okay. Okay, let me just go on to the next section, which is about the additional benefits paid by the UNJSPF, which includes disability and survivors benefits. So the disability benefit was mentioned earlier. This is a benefit that you are covered for already from the beginning of your participation. So as an active staff member now, in the event that you are deemed disabled, you would be eligible to receive a monthly benefit from the fund. Now there's a process to go through, which usually involves your HR office to monitor your situation and to put forward your case to the fund for review for disability. This is a benefit that has to be approved by the fund, and if you are granted the disability benefit, it is a monthly benefit. There's no lump sum option. It's a monthly benefit, and usually there's a review, periodic review, to determine if you're still disabled. And once you have been approved for a disability benefit up through the time that you reach your early retirement age, it's normally approved for the rest of your life. So the amount of this benefit is calculated as if you had worked up until your normal retirement age. We have information on our website if you would like to know more about it. Given the time, you might be posing some questions in the Q&A, but just to say that this is a benefit that you don't have to be vested for, but there is a process about having to be medically deemed disabled, and that you have to first exhaust all of your leave entitlement as an active staff member before the disability benefit would begin to be paid. A child's benefit. I mentioned that there is a child's benefit associated with the normal and early retirement benefit if your child is under age 21, so up until the age of 21. This child's benefit is payable. If you have a normal retirement benefit, it will be paid straight away. If you have an early retirement benefit, it's paid at the time you reach your normal retirement age. However, there's also a possibility that your child is deemed disabled, and if that's the case, then the child's benefit can be paid beyond age 21. There's a process for awarding and recognizing and awarding child as disabled, and usually this is the case that someone who's an active staff member has a special child's allowance because the child's disabled. So at the time of separation, it should be reported and put forward to be reviewed for disability by the fund, so that it's clear that the child is still disabled. Should the child already be, over 21, then the child's benefit could be payable to that child. Okay. The child's benefit I mentioned that is paid to you as a retiree at the time that you've reached normal retirement age. If your child is still under 21, or if your child is deemed disabled, you will receive this child's benefit in addition to your retirement benefit. Now we'll look at the survivor's benefits. So this is in the event of your death. We have a video, which I will not play today, but encourage you to look at, because it will go over the benefits that I'm going through in this presentation. We have a surviving spouse's benefit. So if you're married to the same person at the time of separation until the date of your death, this spouse is recognized as entitled to a surviving spouse's benefit. The benefit is half of the amount of your benefit, and it is payable to your surviving spouse for life. And if you are in a non-traditional marriage, a non-traditional union, then we have information about what types of unions, either non-traditional or same-sex, or they could be some types of partnerships or something like that in particular countries. So what is recognized by the fund as having pension rights would be available for you to review on our website, and it's important that you have reported any updates in your marital status to your Human Resources office so that the information is conveyed to the fund. Again, the benefit's about half of what your benefit would be, and it's payable for life to the spouse. Here are links for more information, and again to the annexes about different types of unions in different countries and what's recognized. It's possible that you are divorced and your divorced spouse would be entitled to a surviving spouse's benefit in the event of your death. There are conditions that have to have been met. So this would have been someone that you were married to for at least 10 years while you were an active participant in the fund, and that your divorce decree didn't expressly renounce the UNJSPF pension benefits, and that the death occurred within 15 years of the divorce, and that the surviving divorced spouse was at least age 40 or would wait to be paid until the person reached age 40. So if the divorced spouse meets these requirements, then a benefit would be payable. And in the event that you had remarried before separation from service and had a spouse that you were still married to at the time of death, it's possible that both of them would be paid the surviving spouse's benefit. And they would split the benefit in proportion to the length of marriage. And I think Christine also mentioned that, in some countries, having more than one wife at one time is legal. And so in the event that you have more than one spouse and you pass away, then the two or more additional spouses would split the spouse's benefit. If you're not married when you separate, but you marry after separation and you're in receipt of a retirement benefit from the fund, you can choose to purchase an annuity so that this new spouse would receive a benefit in the event of your death, because they otherwise will not automatically be entitled because you were not married to them at the time of separation. So if you want to purchase an annuity, there are strict deadlines and conditions. So you have to make the choice to purchase the annuity within a year of your marriage, and then you would be paying from your own benefit a certain percentage, so that you're paying for the annuity that way, and then in the event of your death, your spouse would be entitled to a benefit. So just be aware of this, and there's additional information available through the link on this slide. Surviving child's benefit. If you die in service, your eligible children would receive a benefit as long as they were under age 21. They would receive a benefit or if they're disabled, it's possible they could receive the benefit beyond age 21. So this is again about still about the child who's deemed disabled and the eligibility beyond age 21. So here we have, it's possible that you could have a surviving spouse, an ex-spouse, and children all being paid a survivor's benefit in the event of your death. So this is just to give you an idea that the fund does pay benefits to the surviving spouses for life in the event of your death. If you have no surviving spouse or surviving children, it's possible you may have a secondary dependent, and if that is the case, the secondary dependent could be entitled to a survivor's benefit from the pension fund in the event of your death. So if this is a parent that you have as your secondary dependent, then they could receive a benefit which is equal to the surviving spouse's benefit. If the secondary dependent is a sibling, then they would receive the amount similar to the child's benefit. The residual settlement, this is a one-time payment in the event that you have no survivors who are being paid a monthly survivor's benefit. So possibly you have no spouse or children or secondary dependent. Then in the event of your death, let's give a couple scenarios. In service, if you had no spouse or children, then you would have the amount of your contributions and interest that you paid to the fund would be payable to somebody that you designated as the beneficiary of your residual settlement. If you separated and receiving a retirement benefit, it's possible then you also maybe have no spouse or children or secondary dependent, and in the event of your death, any amount that's still due from the amount you paid into the fund would be paid as a residual settlement. So we had a couple of scenarios here, which I'll show you. The residual settlement is not very frequently paid because usually there is a survivor who's entitled to a monthly benefit, but in the event that a residual settlement is due, then this would be paid to the person or persons that you put on your A2 form. And it could be that you were paid already, though, the amount of your own contributions and interest as a retirement benefit. If you were paid a lump sum, for instance, and were paid for a year or two and then you passed away, there may be no residual amount left to be paid out as a residual settlement. So we ask everyone to fill out the A2 form and to submit it to the fund. You can update this at any time to change who you want to put as a beneficiary, but just be aware that this will not even come into play if you do have a surviving spouse or children or secondary dependent who are entitled to a benefit from the fund. This is what the form looks like. And again, you can update it and send it to the fund if you want to change who you designate. And I have links here to more information about the residual settlement. And I'm going to quickly go through these examples. This is just showing that if you had even if you had a spouse and child who were entitled to a survivor's benefit, but then they passed away and the amount paid out still didn't exhaust your own contributions and interest, then there's possibly a residual amount payable, and that would go to whomever was put on your A2 form. And if you had no one on your A2 form, it will go to your estate. And this is another example of someone who was already paid out in their retirement benefit the amount or more of what their contributions to the fund were, so there's no residual amount payable. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I'm going to pass the last section over to Christine, and hope that you're still with us. So thank you.
Christine, you're on mute.
Thank you. Great. Sorry for that. I just said thank you very much, Denise, and bravo for catching up on time. I know it was fast going through the benefit options, but I wanted to remind everyone that today's session was really focused on participation, and that this aspect of the different benefit options is very important and is, of course, part of what you surely wanted to know about, but that we will go into more detail on the different benefit options, everything that Denise covered in the session on separation and retirement, which will come in March. So if you didn't catch everything today or you find it was too fast, just for you to know that in the March session, you will have time to go through this again. And if you have hopefully time to join us, and we will go also into more detail than what Denise covered today. So I'm aware that we are over the time and you're already dedicating a lot of time to us for this. I will very quickly show you where you can find helpful information to, I guess, in your own time, figure out pension or find answers to pension questions you may have. So I do this quickly. It's going to be another 5 minutes and then we will be done with this presentation. I'm going to take over sharing the screen again. So what you should see now is the website of the pension fund. It says probably something like the UNJSPF at 75. So here we are in our website, and this is one of the tools that we think is useful when navigating your pension questions. So the website has some, key items that I think are very helpful. Number one, if you scroll down, you will see key information that is pushed to you at the very top, like this town hall session. And again, thank you for joining. Then you see that there are different chapters highlighted, like participating in the fund, separating or retiring, retired, receiving benefits, survivors, something else. Here, if you click on these chapters, like I do right now, it will take you to all the pages that we think are key or contain key information for someone who is currently participating in the fund. If, however, you are already thinking about retiring, then maybe you also want to visit that chapter. And if you say, I don't know right now, I just want to know what kind of topics might be of interest, you could click on the top for clients and we'll pull up all the topics that we think warrant a whole page of information. And you could check whether there's anything that is of interest to you. So we highlighted some of these pages in our presentation. And through answering to questions, I saw that there are questions about break in service. There are questions about leave without pay, special leave without pay. There are questions about cost of living adjustments, etc., etc. So all of these, you see there are pages that are linking to more information on these topics. This might already help you answer your questions. All right, then we have investments. For those of you who want to kind of follow how is the fund doing, what are the fluctuations in our assets and so on, a whole number of pages just about that. So historical fund performance is where you would find what is the current status of the assets of the fund. Remember I showed you earlier 87 billion point something. That comes from this historical fund page where the latest update was made on the 5th of January. Resources. This is an important part where you can access regulations and rules, but maybe that's, I don't know, too technical for many, fully understandable. You can access information about member self-service. That is very important because, again, I encourage everyone to register for member self-service. It's a very useful tool where you can run estimates, where you can access this pension statement I showed you earlier, etc. Forms, most forms, I would say, please access them inside your member self-service because they will be pre-completed with your name and unique ID number and have a barcode. Much better to go into member self-service and access forms than from the website, but if you needed to, you could. E-learning modules. These are the modules that we mentioned, I think, at least once or twice. Here's a page explaining what modules exist that you could take in your own time to cover information that's key, including essentials for separation and retirement. So that is something you may want to check out if you're considering retiring in the near future. And there are other modules. It explains how to access them. They are all on the Blue Line platform of the UN. But anyone can access these modules. You just have to register and you get access. So even if you're not a UN specifically staff member, but maybe work for CTBTO or for whatever organization, you can access these e-learning modules. And then also in resources, we have all the videos, we have booklets by topic, we have information about exchange rates, etc. That is interesting for someone preparing for retirement, maybe. Excuse me, an overview of the separation process, if you need to know what to do when, what documents to prepare, and so on. And that's, I think, the most important. And then we have the Contact Us webpage. Here is where you should contact us. This is where is all the information about all the channels to contact the fund. You can write to us here by identifying whether you are a participant or a retiree or beneficiary. And if you're a participant, you will then tell us what topic you are contacting us for. That will help us route your query to the right team. You provide your unique ID number, please, which is your reference number with the fund, so we can make sure we review the correct file for you. And if you don't know your unique ID number, you can click here and request it right from your work email address, and you will get a reply within 1 to 2 days. And then you can submit your query. And then you provide your contact details, of course, and any written question you want to submit. That's the channel to submit written queries, please. Or if you want to call our call center, then please call during call center hours. New York, we basically function for 17 hours every day, every weekday. And if you are in a duty station where we have walk-in services like New York and Geneva, we provide the information as to where and when you can visit us for walk-in services. And then finally, you have here toll-free numbers. Depending on where you are in the world, hopefully we have a toll-free number so you could call us. So that's a call center team, which are pension experts, of course, could help you either address your query or, if that's not possible, route it to the right team. So this is where you have all the information to contact us, to visit us, to call us. And last point is about member self-service. So member self-service, if you go to resources, you have about member self-service. That, if you click there, opens a page with information about how to register and then how to get help with troubleshooting and so on. Or if you are already a registered member self-service user, you could just go in, of course, using this big vignette here. So if I go to the page on member self-service, it will explain, there's a whole bunch of information, including guidance on how to register, which you have here, and how to obtain your unique ID number, which you would need, etc. Once you have what you need and you have registered, let's go to member self-service just for a very quick overview. I'm going into my own, so I'm showing you what it looks like. This is mine, Christine. Obviously, I accept the disclaimer, and this is the view of a participant of member self-service. The key information in member self-service for participants, I would say, is documents, where you can access any estimate that you have generated in Member Self-Service. You see they come up here as PDFs. You can access your pension statement. That's the document we looked at earlier, which I think is a very useful document. And again, I urge you to check it out. So here you can click on that and you can download it if you wish. And the next one, as I said, will be published in May 2024 for 2023. And in the future, once you have separated, you will also be able to access under documents, official benefit letters, and other documents. E-forms, this is where you can access all the official pension fund forms, including payment instructions, including Form A2, the one Denise spoke about, in English and in French. And as I said, these forms are pre-completed with your name and unique ID number. If I opened this one, you'd see that it has, for me, my name and my unique ID number and pension fund number. All right. So e-forms, another important tab. Proof documents, that's important once you separate. Here you can track whether the fund received the key separation documents for your case for pension purposes. Personal information, obviously that's about personal information. If you're someone who has the option to validate or restore or transfer in pension rights, you could make an application here in Member Self-Service. So you could submit your request here. But you can also just simply write to the pension fund and ask or inquire about these options in writing via the contact form I showed you earlier. And then we have the estimate tool. And of course, the estimate tool is, I think, one of the most used parts of Member Self-Service. So here you would enter your separation date. So if I say, what if I separated on the 31st of December 2024? I don't have that intention, but who knows? I would not enter a lump sum at this point. I would just leave it as is. I submit my request. I say okay. And then I check when this little wheel that we see is done turning and it says estimate complete. Please go to the document tab to look at your estimate. All right, so if I go to documents, on the very top, 17 January, I have my estimate. So that's how you run an estimate. If you ran an estimate and you are close to retirement and you want to know, all right, so I got my default amounts for the date of separation, 31 December 2024, let's just say. So you know already what your maximum lump sum would be as part of retirement or early retirement benefit, and you want to know, what if I took a lesser lump sum? I don't want the maximum. Maybe the maximum is 100,000 and you say I only want 50,000. Then you can put, for the same separation date, you put again the separation date, and now you put a lump sum of only 50,000. You run the estimate again. It will then give you the same details for early and normal retirement, but this time with a specific lump sum. So that's the estimate tool. I think it's quite intuitive, but if you have questions, I think Denise showed you there is a tutorial that you can access, or maybe we didn't say that yet, but you can access a tutorial on this on our website under estimates. Final tab, MSS document upload. Here you can upload documents to the fund. You don't need to send your documents to us anymore. You can take a form, download, print it, date it, hand sign it. We don't accept electronic signatures yet. And then once you have done and completed your form, you can create a PDF, and then you can upload that PDF here under document upload to the fund. If you want to upload a document, you just simply choose the file from your computer that you want to upload. I'm not going to do that right now. And you click upload. You'll have to identify the label for the document and you're done. And then once you have uploaded your document, if you go back to the tab, you see there is this outbox. And under the outbox, you would see anything that you uploaded in the past. So you can check whether the upload worked. So for example, if you haven't yet submitted your A2 form, maybe you want to use the document upload function. I mean, first use the e-form function to get your A2 form completed, dated, hand sign it, create a PDF or a JPEG, and then go to MSS document upload and send it to us. This way, we have the form, you're good, we are good, and everything's in order. And you can do the same, of course, for payment instructions in the future supporting documents, etc. All right, and I will stop here. That is member self-service. So with that, we have concluded this presentation. I know it was a lot of information. Big thanks to Denise for her presentation, and very big thanks to my colleagues who have answered over 560 questions as we went through this presentation. And finally, a big, big thank you to you all for being here. I know we still have 1,300 people right now in the session. At some point, I think we had over 2,000 something. So thank you for attending. It was a great pleasure to provide this briefing to you. We know we may not have addressed everyone's question necessarily, but I hope you know how to contact us if you needed more information, especially if you have information about your own special case and you want to, of course, get more detailed information about your specific issue. Contact us through the channels I showed you. On our website, you have the Contact Us page. Go there, use the channels available, contact us. We are here to help you. We do our very best to answer as soon as we can. We are a small team, but we take our work very seriously, and we are honored and privileged to serve the people who serve the world, as UNFCU says so well, and wish everyone a very good continuation of the day, of the year. Happy New Year, and thank everyone who was here today for attending and for supporting this event, including our colleagues in OICT, of course. So we will publish the video and the presentation on our website within the next few days. And we see each other maybe in March for the pre-retirement or separation session for those who are interested. And those who would like a French session on the topic we covered today, that will be in February. That would be for the same topic as today, which is more participation focused. All right. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone. And till next time.